and young people responded very, very well to that. They understood that. The other thing that I thought they would probably boo me for, but they were equally enthusiastic. I said, under our system, you're not going to have income tax, and you're not going to have this. You can make your choices on your friends, your choices on what you can make your choice on what you smoke and drink and all that. But you have the responsibility of everything that you do, and you can't ever commit violence. And if things go well for your plans, you can't go crying to your neighbors and say, "You take care of me," and send your congressman there. And they responded well about the responsibility argument because the freedom argument overwhelmed them. You mean I wouldn't have to do this and no draft and it's we have done a very poor job in presenting the case for liberty, and I work on it every single day on how I can formulate, the story, the scenario of how wonderful. Liberty is, and it's been tested. We've had a pretty good test in the early years of this country, but it's a shame to see it fading away. I mean, and I sure you sort of expressed the same concern. What's this going to lead to? What's going to lead to trouble? Because when you run this up, if you're running up a moral debt and a financial debt, the debt will be liquidated, and that's what's going through. And there's all this hesitation, and that it has to be liquidated one way or the other, and then the restoration of the natural law has to occur. But we're up. It's up for choice right now, and we should know what it is. But we shouldn't be discouraged because there's a lot of people waiting for that message.
Yeah, I completely see what you're seeing, and there's something very powerful and unique right now to the fact that our debt is being finally called. We will be held accountable to it, and nobody has an answer to what comes next. And if what comes next is natural law and volunteerism being the guiding light of our path forward, and we have a way to talk about it, we have a way to describe what that looks like, we have a way to empower the individual to feel like they can thrive still in a moment of great distress for our federal government now being lost in its both moral and financial debt. I mean, I could take my next question in two directions, but I think I am really interested in asking about your take on the Federal Reserve, because I've done my research and in ending the Fed, and it looks really scary, I won't lie, what ending the Fed looks like. I don't know that I have the confidence in certainly audit the Fed. I'm ready to audit the Fed. Let's do that. But ending the Fed sounds, I don't have the tool chest to end the Fed. And I'm wondering if you can help point me to a few resources that would give me the confidence to end the Fed.
Well, read a lot, whatever you can find by Murray Rothbard.
Okay.
You can get all those books from the Mises Institute. No, we didn't have the Fed before 1913. This argument has been going on since the country started because Hamilton wanted it and Jefferson did not want it, and it's unnecessary. I look at it in a moral way because what we're doing, we have a system of money which is immoral. A secret body of men get together and decide how much it's worth and what the interest rates would be. It's total distortion of the whole process, and it's counterfeit. If the government was involved, and originally the Treasury, but we didn't have a central bank because they knew the history that it will always become corrupt because they would be allowed to counterfeit legally. Then when we got control of the central bank of the world, and we had all the money and all the gold and all the resources, we had license to steal, and we became the biggest counterfeiter in the world. But right now, there's a resistance to it. It was destined to come. So to me, it's a moral issue. Nobody has the right to counterfeit. They understand. I tell people, what if I was given the printing press of the government? I can create the exact thing that is out in circulation. Uh, that wouldn't make it right. So, but the Federal Reserve does that, and that is the reason government gets out of control. That you can't have these wars without the Fed. I mean, just think of these last 2 years.
Yeah.
How much money, how much debt have we run up? And they're still trusting the dollar, but less so. And that it finances the wars. It finances the welfare for the wealthy and the people, and all this nonsense and government. So you cannot stop the monstrosity we have with secret and powerful legalized counterfeiting, because human nature is they don't believe in natural law. Natural law seems like they might use something of real value.
What I heard you just say right now is that some of the biggest atrocities happening across the world are due to the fact that we have invented a counterfeit system of currency that allows these players, these deeply nihilistic players, to have unrestricted access to financial resources. And it's interesting because I have lived a life here in the United States where I've had no money. I grew up very, very poor. We were on food stamps for a few years, and medical government assistance, and just a few years, but we got off of it as fast as we could. And I lived a very creative life as a result, a life of passion, but a life of morals, because when you have limited resources, you have to draw on other things to get by. And those other things are principles. Those other things are being responsible with one's bank account. I could tell you down to $1.50 how much I had in my bank account up until a few years ago. And then, at some point in my life, I lived as one of the wealthiest women on the planet. I married the co-founder of Google. I looked into my bank account and there were so many digits. And I will say there is a psychology that happens when you have unrestricted access to resources. It's not a good psychology. And when you don't have a plan for those resources guided by some higher principle. And I tried to bring in that higher principle. I said, okay, I'm going to help people. And as a private citizen, I then went about that. And then I realized that the institutions in play had so many other layers and areas of corruption and influence. And that when you have these powerful pockets of influence, they can become corrupted by these outside powers as well. And it becomes very chaotic very quickly. And I had actually a really big issue around realizing I have a background in economics. I've been a very spiritual person my whole life. I've believed in God. I have relied on God to get me through some of my more challenging moments in life. And the amount of money that my family had made me psychologically disconnected from all of these other guiding principles that had guided me for the first 30 years of my life.